Bom dia. Good morning to all of you. Good morning from Portugal. Welcome into the channel, everyone. You know, today I'm a little sad. I'm a little melancholy, and I'll tell you why. We're getting ready to move in just a few days, just a few more days of me sort of taking my morning walks, just enjoying the scenery here, either whether it's by the ocean or the forest. Today I decided to go to the forest because it's a little windy, and I thought the trees could block some of the wind if it's hitting the microphone and all of that. And this is my morning walk with my dog. But, you know, I just wanted to recount and kind of think back and look back at my time in this beautiful country, the time that I rediscovered playing video games, connecting with my kids over that, exploring and trying to learn a language. And bom dia. Bom dia. And just kind of talk about what it's like to kind of live and sort of play in a foreign land like this. We were only going to be here for 3 to 5 years. We were going to do this as a bit of an adventure. After I retired from corporate media in 2017 and wanted to just focus on my own things, focus on my own YouTube channel and focus on my family. I was getting up at 3, 4 in the morning for basically 20 years of my life to do morning television. And you know, on the weekends, I never got to see my kids. In the mornings, they'd be off doing different things, and I never got to see them because I was working. So I said, okay, enough is enough. Good time to retire. And then we really started thinking about where in the world we would want to live. You know, we thought, well, what part of the country would we want to live in? I don't need to live near New York City anymore, so maybe we'll go out to near where her family is, out in, you know, Idaho, or maybe California, where, you know, a portion of her family is, or maybe a portion of my family was in Pennsylvania. And at the end of the day, we said, why are we thinking about that? Why don't we think bigger? You know, we have a few years, the kids are younger. Why don't we go give them this experience? And we started thinking about Europe, and we started thinking about parts of the Netherlands and Denmark and Germany. And at the end of the day, we had come to Portugal a number of years ago. My wife and I did for our anniversary, and we fell in love with it. You know, it was close, it was affordable, it's sunny. Great food, amazing fish, some of the best pork you will ever have. The black pork, holy smokes, is unbelievable. Porco preto, unbelievable. And a language we didn't know. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's give ourselves these few years. And it's just been amazing to watch the kids become fluent in another language through their school. They study it every day in school. And that's been remarkable. And what a tool to be able to give your children, you know, a different language. It forced me to learn a different language. I'm not as good as the kids, but I got pretty good, you know. And my wife became pretty fluent. She had already studied Spanish, so she spoke, you know. The joke is that when you study Portuguese, you get Spanish for free. But when you study Spanish, you do not get Portuguese for free because it's really difficult. And so a lot of Spanish speakers, when they're trying to learn Portuguese for the first time, they really need to start at zero because it can be very different. Anyway, yeah, so we moved here about 5 years ago and just started this amazing journey, and we then decided to stay longer. The pandemic hit and everything went crazy. The world shut down. We couldn't fly anywhere, and so we just sort of hunkered down. And it was amazing, you know, in these moments, you become really, really strong with your family. And that's been an amazing experience. And then, you know, I was working, I think, harder than I ever had in my life. Really, really working hard, building my own thing, you know, building my own channels and really focusing on all of that. And one night during Christmas, I sort of sat down and said, you know what, I want to play some video games again. You know, I grew up playing video games. I love video games. Why have I not carved out this like time for myself to just be able to play and enjoy? And so for whatever reason, I picked up my son's Nintendo Switch. It was mine, but I, you know, gave it to my son and my daughter. And I picked it up and I said, you know, I'm gonna go to the mall. I went to the mall and I picked up Metroid Dread. Metroid was the first game I ever beat back in the 1980s. And I said, oh, Metroid Dread, a new Metroid game? All right, let me do this. And then that just opened up a world for me here in this country. And it was weird, you know, kind of going to these electronic stores. It's not what I'm used to in the United States, going to a Best Buy, going to a Target, going to a Costco or something like that, or a GameStop. And then I had to deal with the sort of the PEGI editions of games, you know, PEGI editions of games, which was weird to me. But that just opened up an entire rabbit hole for me of playing games. And I remember, you know, just sort of sitting by the fireplace, enjoying a whiskey during the holidays, playing Metroid Dread, playing really a video game for the first time in years. Because I had been, you know, really just focused on my career and family. You know, when you've got little kids in the house, it's hard to carve out that time and find that time. But being in this place, being in this environment, really sort of forced me to slow down a bit. And I will say that's one of the benefits of being in a country, specifically in Europe. They do take they take work seriously, but they take family seriously, and they take rest and relaxation seriously. I mean, look at all the vineyards here that they're just planted, all the new vines over here and everything. But you know, they'll spend 2 hours at lunch, and that was new for me. My wife and I joke that we call it a 2-hour fish lunch. Like we'll say, hey, do you want to go get some lunch? And she'll say, but not a 2-hour fish, because that's what they do here. You know, you'll go to a 2-hour lunch, and you know they'll share a bottle of wine, and they'll eat a giant fish, and so we're used to like, okay, you go, you have lunch, and you get back to work. You know, but here it's a whole day affair, it seems. You know, but it really forced me to kind of rethink, just going crazy. I'd drive by these little cafes in my town here and just see a bunch of, you know, adults just sort of sitting there enjoying a coffee and talking to their friends. And while I enjoy that, I'm not going to do that every day, but it was nice to see, oh, here's a different way of life. We don't have to go crazy all the time. And we can sort of structure our day to really enjoy the things that we want and then work as well, you know? And that's what I really started to do, was find that time in the morning to take my new dog on a walk, have a coffee, really just focus on that and enjoy nature, enjoy the ocean, enjoy the forest, then come back and then get to work. In Portugal, they take their wine very seriously, and they have some of the best wines in the world. But you know, in America, most people don't even know about Portuguese wines because they really don't export anything. There's like a few companies that will export some Portuguese wine, but they drink it here. They just don't export it. And it's starting to open up a little bit, but yeah, it's amazing, some of the wines. So when we first got here, we were for €3, which is like, you know, like $3 basically, roughly, get an amazing bottle of wine. And so when we first got here and we were really thinking about what we were going to do with our days and working, we were indulging maybe a little too much with that. Well, definitely, probably too much. And, you know, we really curtailed that. Now it's funny to go through this period where we were like, we don't really drink at all anymore. You know, on a special occasion, we'll have a glass of wine or something like that, but no more going to the grocery store, and that was like an imperative to put in our shopping cart, and we just sort of eliminated doing that. It's part of their sort of natural culture here to always have like a bottle. If I go to lunch, every table has a bottle of wine on it with some, you know, having lunch. And now I don't do that anymore because, you know, I still work and I have my own business, and I'd fall asleep. I don't know how people can do that, you know, unless you're retired, I guess. You do that and you just fall asleep in the afternoon in an easy chair at 2 p.m, but I can't do that. Today I'm up in an area that is one of the most sought after wine regions in all of Portugal. It's near the ocean, and they don't have a lot of land to work with. There's a lot of, you know, there's houses, but it's mountainous, so there's very little vineyard space. And so the vines that they do have, the bottles of wine here can actually be expensive because it is one of the best areas in all of Portugal. There's just not a lot of land, there's not a lot of vines. And so it is quite delicious, I will say that. And you can see the grapes are just starting to come in here. It's beautiful to look at, for sure. As we enter the beginning of the summer here, it's quite beautiful. You know, one thing I've learned quite a bit about video games in Portugal and what that experience was like for people kind of growing up in the 80s with the arcades and different things like that. And spoke to a gentleman who really does a revival trying to teach people and educate the Portuguese people about video game history. And he'll sort of do pop-up events at different malls and things like that. And I've asked him, I said, you know, what is it difficult if I wanted to open an arcade? Because actually something I was thinking about, I'm like, what if my friend and I opened an arcade here at the, at the mall or something? That's one thing that's missing. And he said it's very difficult because like each of the machines has to be registered. That's one thing with living here is the regulations are so onerous. It makes it very difficult, to start businesses and to get things like that off the ground. There's so much paperwork. And the Portuguese people will tell me that's why they look at America and they say, a land of opportunity, because you're able to start a business quickly. You're able to just hit the ground running. And that is true. There are other countries that actually make it easier to incorporate a business even faster, like Australia. You can incorporate and be up and running in a day. But it is true. But I've seen all the paperwork you have to do. So to imagine registering every arcade cabinet and you have to treat it all differently. And I said, oh, forget that. Forget that. No way. That's not something I want to do. And it was just going to be a whole process. So I said, no, I'll just play video games at home. So then I started exploring. I never really went on like video game hunts, to find video games, because when I grew up, like retro video games really weren't a thing. I grew up in the 80s, so my games were new. And I had about a 15-year window there where I really didn't play a lot of video games. So some of the systems that I really missed playing on, the GameCube, the NES, Super NES, like these were systems that I really didn't have much experience with at all. I never owned a PS3. I never owned a GameCube. I would play the Super NES all the time at my friend's house, but I owned a Sega Genesis. So these systems, of course, then became retro. So then I would watch YouTube videos and see people doing game hunts. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to go back and explore some of these games. Here I am in Portugal and rediscovering my love of playing video games. And I want to go find some, I want to go find games that I never got a chance to play on these different systems. And, little old me, of course, didn't realize, if you're getting a PEGI edition of a gaming system or a PAL version of a gaming system, you're dealing with different things. This is not going to work in the United States. It can only work here, all of the differences. But then trying to find different video game stores that have some classic retro games. And I started exploring Portugal. Started going to some different game stops, different game places around Europe, both in the in the UK and Scotland, and throughout other parts of Europe as well, into Germany. When we go on little trips, I would always make it a point to try to find some different game stores, because in many ways this was all new to me. I know it seems crazy, but I know there's whole channels devoted to like game hunts and stuff, but for me it was new, and that's okay. And so I started exploring some of these stores, and I didn't know, like the CEX store. Take a look. Here's a CEX store that I went to, and it's very much like a GameStop, and a lot of classic systems, PS2, GameCube games, Wii U, PlayStation 3, lots of PlayStation 3 games. And I was really finding like a lot of games for super cheap. I'm talking like €2, €1. So I was able to get a lot of PS3 games that I missed. And I really started sort of a PS3 collection that was just a highly curated PS3 collection. Games that I specifically want to play, but are also sort of locked to that system in a lot of ways. And so started finding a lot of those. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to go exploring up in Scotland and different spots around Europe to find different games. And I definitely bought quite a few different games, and that's been a lot of fun to go and find those. Something else that's been so much fun being here and watching my kids grow up is just our joy of playing video games together, having beat-em-ups nights and getting together and playing big Splatoon battles or Mario Party, or I set up a little game space for the kids in our house where they were able to, they're all sitting there playing Fortnite together. Fine, like that was my childhood, sitting on the couch playing couch co-op with friends, and that's what they've been doing, is like sitting there playing side by side and laughing and yelling at each other and, no, don't go over here, why did you go there, back and forth, and it's been so much fun. So we've really dedicated some nights to having beat 'em ups nights, as I call them, where we'll get together and play Shredder's Revenge, play some classic beat 'em ups like River City Ransom and Contra, and and all of those games, and it's been so much fun. to be able to do that and have that experience, and then to be able to go off and play our own games, you know, our own single player adventures. And it's been fun to watch my son experience some classic games for the first time here in this space as well. I've really introduced him to, you know, the first Zelda, playing Metroid Prime for the first time, getting to experience Dragon Quest, the original Dragon Warrior, the game that changed my life, teaching him how to play those games and seeing his experience and reaction to that has been a ton of fun. Another thing about living in Europe is the lack of Xbox games, which I'm not much of an Xbox player. I had the original and I had, I think the second version, first and second ones. But yeah, I'm not much of an Xbox player, but it's amazing to see in Europe, like really very few Xbox. It's all PlayStation and all Nintendo. And really, yeah, when you go into a store, there's a store called FNAC, F-N-A-C, or Wharton, which is another one. They have like 3 Xbox games sitting there. It's really like a sad display. One thing that's funny about living in Europe is, well, at least in Portugal, is the malls. The malls are like a destination, and you go to have lunch at the mall, and it'll be packed because the food is off the charts. It's not like chain restaurants and stuff. There are a few, but it's really good. You get like fresh fish. It's amazing. So the mall, it's almost like kind of a 1980s revival here of what the mall experience was like for us, in the 1980s in America, going to the mall. Everyone would go to the mall, and that's kind of what the experience is here. People go to the mall, they go to the movies, they go have a delicious meal at these restaurants that are part of the food court, but they're excellent. I'm talking Brazilian barbecue, Brazilian steak, delicious fish, pastas, you name it. They don't have an arcade. I wish they could get an arcade there. Oh my gosh, it would be like going back to the 1980s at the mall here. But it is weird. It really is weird. People go and hang out and there's different video game stores and different electronic stores, but it is definitely, when you think about different malls across the United States, a lot of them going empty, going dark, sort of collapsing. It's kind of interesting to see. One thing I'm gonna miss here more than maybe anything is my gaming room. I took over this attic space and kind of turned it into my gaming space, and you can see here it was like a circular space. It was round, so I had to get bookshelves that didn't go all the way up to the ceiling, and I kind of decorated it the way I wanted to, put all my different game systems on different shelves, and really made it a cozy space. Got some recliners so that my son or daughter could come up and join me for a beat 'em ups night or whatever, so I didn't just get one chair, And that room to me, especially, I remember during like the Halloween season, sitting in that room and it was pouring down rain for like 3 or 4 days, and playing Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Symphony of the Night in that space. I will never forget that experience. It's kind of thundering and pouring down rain outside, and I'm playing this amazing game with this amazing music and experiencing this classic game for the first time. I'd never played it before. That's an experience I'll never forget in that space. Something else I'll never forget in that space, again, just apart from playing with my kids and having a blast, doing like Splatoon battles and Shredder's Revenge and those types of things, and River City Ransom and all of that, is rediscovering my love of JRPGs and RPGs in general, but mostly, let's be honest, JRPGs. And being intentional with my time with those games. I hustle through life, work really hard, do a lot of like, all right, I gotta get this done. And I think with playing JRPGs again and coming back to that experience forced me to slow down and just enjoy the experience. I've been playing the Trails series for the first time, and in our sort of modern, we gotta keep moving, Fortnite way of thinking, to slow down, read some text on the screen, read some dialogue and this narrative, and then have some combat and slow down. It's been lovely. But even more than that, just connecting with the music and the art style again, the combat, learning upgrades, how to, learning buffs and debuffs, and learning how to upgrade and develop rapport again. Like all of these sort of mechanics and battle systems and combat systems that I had kind of blocked out of my mind for so many years because I just wasn't playing them. It's been great to be able to come back to those and to sit in that room under a blanket at night after a hard day of work and listen to the rain and sit there and play some JRPGs. One of my fondest memories, well, I have a couple in the JRPG realm that have been fond while I've been here, is playing Ys Books 1 and 2. That experience for the first time, and playing that on the Analog Duo, you know, the TurboGrafx CD, being able to play that on the Analog Duo during the holiday season, I'll never forget that. It was an amazing, really, really great experience playing that game for the very first time. Then also Xenoblade. I mean, what can I say? To sit down and play Xenoblade Chronicles here in this space, I will always have this memory of playing the first Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition in this house, in this space. Taking it with me in handheld mode, but being able to sit down in my nice recliner after a day of work and, you know, grabbing a beverage, getting a little dessert, getting a cookie or something, drawing a blanket over me and just exploring and seeing this amazing story unfold that so many people have gotten to experience, and I've never had the chance to experience it, was really, really enjoyable. So yeah, I think just reconnecting to JRPGs here has been a blessing. And I like thinking about them. You know, when I'm out here in the forest, I've shot a bunch of videos here, like my review of Xenoblade I shot here in this forest, because it reminds me of that, of exploring and just taking it all in, listening to the birds and looking at the scenery and all of that. So it's been beautiful to be able to reconnect with this genre of video game that's been my favorite, really, playing JRPGs. Getting into Dragon Warrior for the first time back in the day changed everything for me with playing video games, getting away from just the normal platformers that I had been playing up until that point, you know, Mario Brothers and you know, Metroid and Kid Icarus and things like that. So to be able to explore and expand my horizons has been a game changer for me once again. Yeah, I'm a little sad, a little melancholy. Just a few more days here in this space as our kids finish up their final exams, and then we're moving on. New experiences. And that's what life's all about, right? If you're not experiencing some kind of discomfort in your life, then you're not growing. You know, we all grow through discomfort, and I think it's exciting and to explore this new part. My son to start high school in a new space, and to give them that. So that one chapter ends, another chapter begins, and I'm excited to build my new game room. I can't wait for that. Once we get settled and everything, I can figure out the shelving that I want and do all of that. My goal, actually, I want to set up a couple of retro consoles. I'd like to actually set up all of my consoles. I got an HDMI switcher that's like 16 ports in it, I think, like that. I forget. Then I'll be able to switch through you know, if I want to play GameCube, just one click, you know. If I want to play the NES Classic, one click. If I want to play my PlayStation 5, one click. So I'm excited to be able to do that. I think the barrier to entry, or we create friction. Like if we want to play some of these classic consoles, people put them in boxes and they're like, oh, I'm not going to dig that out of the attic. Yeah, but if you can have them all set up and they're ready to go with just a click of a button, then you're going to play them, you know? And there's so many classic games that I've missed over the years that I'm excited to play in the next few years. So yeah, I'm a little sad, a little melancholy. I just wanted to come in today and talk about my experience being here, what it's been like over these past few years, sort of my experience in playing video games here as well. After all, this is a video game channel. And yeah, what life has been like trying to collect and search for video games in this space. So anyway, beautiful country, beautiful scenery. If you ever get a chance to come out this way, I highly encourage you to do it. Make sure you just don't go to Lisbon. You got to get out and explore and go into the mountains and try some of these little villages and have a 2-hour fish. Sit down and get a dorado, get a robalo, get a giant fish, have some porco preto. Delicious black pork is unbelievable, and just have a blast. And yeah, try some of their amazing wine. You can drink you can drink the wine that I'm not drinking so much anymore, and enjoy. So, anyways, guys, bon dia from Portugal, and we'll see you real soon in the next videos.